candidates are dredging up the past as they launch new attacks on each other. CNN's Phil Mattingly is here with more. Phil?
Good morning, Pam. This primary season hasn't exactly been for the meek, no question about it, but things are only going to escalate going forward, and there's a reason why. This is a critical moment for both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump's campaign. This is the time you define your opponent, and that's why we're seeing attacks. Plenty of attacks, very negative attacks, attacks that deal a lot with the past.
We are going to unify the Democratic Party and stop Donald Trump.
Hillary Clinton taking a new line of attack against Donald Trump. Her campaign painting Trump as a greedy billionaire in a new ad.
I sort of hope that happens because then people like me would go in and buy.
Harkening back to Trump's controversial comments before the 2008 housing market collapse.
If there is a bubble burst, as they call it, you can make a lot of money.
Clinton swiping at the presumptive nominee on multiple fronts before a union crowd Monday, issuing a warning about Trump's 4 bankruptcies surrounding his casino holdings.
He could bankrupt America like he's bankrupted his companies.
And sticking with another tried and true assault, Trump's temperament.
The last thing we need is a bully in the pulpit.
All as the billionaire continues to hound Bill Clinton's past infidelity, sending one of his top advisors to swipe at Hillary Clinton.
She overregulates, she overtaxes, she overpromises and doesn't deliver.
The hostility spreading, with both candidates facing record-high negatives in the most recent polls. But Trump is getting new support from Capitol Hill in the form of Tennessee Senator Bob Corker.
His approach to foreign policy, that's something I want to hear more about. I heard more about it today and appreciated that.
Though Corker is still downplaying talk that he may be high on Trump's VP list.
I'm not angling for any job. I think the best way to not end up in a position like those is to angle for it. But I have no indication whatsoever that I would even be considered.
So, Pam, the intrigue over who will be Donald Trump's running mate still continuing on, and likely not to get a good solid answer on that until July at the Republican National Convention. But it is important as you keep an eye on Donald Trump heading back onto the campaign trail today in New Mexico, Hillary Clinton as well out in California. These attacks are only going to continue to escalate. As we mentioned, record high negatives for both of these candidates, both candidates seeing the opportunity and driving the others' negatives up going forward. So hope, change, positivity, those are things I don't really think we're going to see a lot of in the weeks ahead, Pam.
A lot of mudslinging ahead in the next 5 months until the general election. Get ready. Buckle up. All right. Thanks so much, Phil Mattingly. And as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump get increasingly nastier in their attacks, will the race for the White House be centered on issues or scandals? Here to discuss, Michael Nutter, former Philadelphia mayor and a Hillary Clinton supporter, and Gina Loudon, who is a Trump supporter. Good morning to you both. Great to have you with us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pam.
So this morning, top aides for both campaigns tackling the latest attacks right here on CNN. And here's what they said. Let's listen.
If he wants to keep talking about these old allegations, I think it will just deprive him of the opportunity to actually make the gains he needs to with critical voting blocs, including female voters who he's doing so poorly with.
And you don't have any plans to return in-kind attacks. Obviously he as well has had a dubious past at times with women, but you guys are not going to go there.
We are not interested in waging this campaign in the gutter.
All he's doing is he's giving the facts.
No.
He's giving the facts.
He knew the facts then in the 90s when this was all happening, and he said
he was
it's all BS.
He was a private citizen who was friendly with the Clintons, and he was trying to protect a friend. All right? Now it's a different game.
All right, so there you hear from both sides. Gina, to you first. We heard there from Trump's VP. We've heard from Trump himself that past controversies about the Clintons will be a central part of Trump's case against her this election season. Do people really want to hear about this instead of specifics on fixing the economy or foreign policy in your view? Is that the right strategy?
Well, time will tell, I guess. But one thing that I did observe is that Hillary Clinton started talking about
how she is such a defender of women. And Donald Trump brought up the fact, hey, then why aren't you defending the women, you know, like Juanita Broderick, who accuses your husband of rape, or Paula Jones, where you paid off $850,000 worth of hush money? I think those are legitimate, almost policy questions if you bring up the topic of gender to begin with, which Hillary did. And you'll notice, too, it was effective because this week she's not talking about gender anymore. So I think Mr. Trump's strategy there, at least, was effective.
But there's clearly a move to focus, or maybe it's not a move, it's just staying with what his strategy has been all along, to really stay focused on scandals and stay away from specifics and issues. What do you make of that? Why is that? What's behind that? It's clearly a strategy. Gina.
I think that Mr. Trump so far, I think, has you know, he has a style. Hillary's playing by the old school establishment playbook. Donald Trump is writing a playbook of his own that, frankly, none of us, including me, completely are prepared for or can predict. And so I don't think Hillary quite knows how to handle him
frankly.
yet.
or understand, but it's working for him, Michael, and the old ways may not work against a Donald Trump. He's completely changed the landscape. Let's be honest. What does Hillary Clinton need to do? I mean, she's coming out and saying, look, I'm not going to focus on you know, certain things about him. I'm going to focus on his demeanor and his job qualifications. But then she's talking about his bankruptcies in the past. I mean, what does she need to do here to really hit home against Trump?
Hillary Clinton is a serious adult who is running for president of the United States of America. Donald Trump only wants to talk about personal issues or make personal attacks because he has no ideas, he has no plans, no specifics, and can't talk about what he would do as president of the United States of America because he doesn't know what he would do. He will have, you know, he changes his positions on a daily basis, multiple times a day, depending on the controversy of the moment. So, of course, he does not want to get into a policy debate, a specifics debate, a real debate about jobs, about the economy, about public safety, about children getting an education, about how to make America safe on the homeland and abroad. Of course he doesn't want to talk about those issues because he has no ideas. He has no idea
Michael,
what he's talking about and can only attack Hillary Clinton.
But in your view, why does he need to? He's gotten this far, keeping it vague, keeping it general.
He's gotten this far with
specific?
a narrow, because he's only talking to a smaller portion of the American public, Republican voters in primaries. The general election is a totally different story.
I've talked to some well-educated
many more people who are
Trump
engaged and
supporters.
involved.
I've talked to some well-educated people who are Trump supporters, and he's appealing to them too.
Well, that's an interesting combination. Well-educated people who are Trump supporters. That's you know, that's an interesting combo.
I mean,
there are a whole bunch
really
of other folks who are not Trump supporters.
What are you saying about?
Across
I'm
the
sorry,
United
sir.
States
What are you saying about Mr. Trump's supporters? What are you saying about Mr. Trump's supporters, sir, that we're not well educated?
Mr. Trump supporters are Mr. Trump supporters.
That's a gross generalization,
I never said
and I think when you make assertions like that, you don't do your candidate any credit. But let me say this, Mr. Trump, very specifically on policy differences. I was really patient during the time that you were basically bashing Mr. Trump. If I can just respond, please. The entire time, Mr. Trump has been very clear. He wants to lower taxes, especially on lower income families. Secretary Clinton has been very clear also. She's going to be raising taxes. She's going to be increasing costs of entitlement into the tens of billions of dollars. And so there are some very clear policy differences all the way down the line between the two of them. And I think Mr. Trump has been very specific, and in fact, if you go to his website, you can read great specifics of his plan for America.
If he wants to talk about taxes,
to use generalities, to use generalities yourself and say that he speaks in generalities, it really says more about the depth of your knowledge of this candidate than it does about his actual policy. Because
I know a lot about Mr. Trump. If he wants to talk about taxes, he should release his tax returns. He should explain to the American public why, for a couple of years, he paid no taxes. He should explain how he could champion, how he could trumpet
he has explained all that, sir. And he's also said he will release his taxes when his audit is over with. He can't release them until the audit is concluded.
Well, he can release them while an audit's going on. That's not true.
The Internal Revenue Service said The audit is not holding him back from releasing his taxes. The Internal Revenue Service said that. He doesn't want to release his taxes
and he will release
he
them.
has something to
he
hide.
will release them. And I think if we're going
No,
to
he's not.
and I think if we're
No,
going
he's
to
not.
talk about things that we want to know, how about knowing where in the heck Hillary made all the millions and millions of dollars in just the 6 years during her term as Secretary of State? How come she says she was dead broke when she left the White House, and now she has more than $100 million?
The release of 33 years of tax returns by Hillary and President Clinton. You may have missed that, but Donald Trump needs to release his tax returns. Nothing is holding him back from doing that other than himself.
For much of her life, in her husband's life, and therefore it's mostly all a matter of record. That's a different thing than a guy who's been in business, had more than 500
He's running for president,
which you failed
Gina.
to mention when you
Gina,
mentioned
he's running
Gina
for
Loudon,
president of the United States of America.
I've let you all go over the time limit because this was such a great, lively discussion, and I do appreciate you both coming on. Thank you so much. This conversation, of course, will continue. And still ahead on this Tuesday, human remains from Flight 804 are now being examined in the Cairo morgue. What they could reveal